This is PJNET.TV, and this is my perspective and comments. In this video segment of my perspective and comments, we cover politics, society here and abroad, and the events of the day that are shaping our nation. PJNET.TV, my perspective and comment, coming to you with a worldview, one nation under God. Hello and welcome to my perspective and comments. And a lot going on this week, folks. A lot. We had anarchy in the streets, Portland, Chicago, New York. We have COVID numbers that sound bad, but once again, the numbers are flawed. We also had Congress pushing to pass a stimulus bill. The Democrats want $3 trillion. GOP is pushing for $1 trillion. And the GOP also wants to lower that $600 down to $400. Why do they want to do that? Because the GOP, the Republicans are heartless? No, they want to take the incentive out of not going back to work. And that's what this $600 that's been put on the table, or that's been paid out. So workers are making more money staying home than if they did going into work. So the Republicans are looking to pull that incentive away and incentivize going back to work. So a lot. That's just a small snippet of what's been going on here this past week. I'd like to talk a bit about what we've been seeing in some of these cities, like the mayors who want to stand down and also tell the police departments to stand down, like Lori Lightfoot, mayor in Chicago, like Ted Wheeler, mayor in Portland. And as we've seen over this last month, Jenny Durkin, mayor of Seattle. Remember Jenny? The summer of love that was supposed to be taking place in Seattle, and it turned a spiral right down to the toilet, where they started killing, maiming, raping in the autonomous zone there. And what we've been seeing is, as President Trump has aptly said, that what you're seeing in these Democrat-led cities is anarchy that's taking place and outright lawlessness. And that's what President Trump is looking to change coming shortly. One other thing, in amongst all this anarchy that was taking place, we also, I don't know if you folks know the name, or if someone said the McCloskeys, if you know who that is. If you don't, this was a couple that has been under fire now from the city circuit attorney, DA Kimberly Gardner, the prosecutor. And what took place was that the McCloskeys were in their home and in Missouri, and Black Lives Matter were rioting, and they tore down this was a gated community. They tore down the gate, and they're stomping on their property, on their road, and heading towards their house. So they were scared. And the husband brought out an AR-style rifle, and his wife had a pistol. Now, I'll say right now, the way that they handled the weapons, I think the NRA would have a problem, but they were protecting their home. And what this DA Gardner has done is she has brought federal charge, or not federal, but she are charging them with a felony for brandishing and threatening. And right now, fortunately, these two are lawyers to begin with, but right now the Attorney General has already stepped forward and said, Attorney General there in Missouri, Eric Schmidt, came out and said, hey, what's going to happen is if this DA, this crazed DA, and oh, by the way, it's an election year for this DA also. But what the Attorney General there in Missouri says, look, if she pushes this, we're going to seek for dismissal of the case and, to drop all charges. And the governor in Missouri has also said that, he was, this isn't going to stand. And, he will take steps also. But remember, folks, I mean, it wasn't just that they were coming through and happily, going through their yard, but they were yelling things like, we're going to kill you and burn your home and kill your dog. And so it wasn't this so-called peaceful protest, but these were anarchists and threatening homeowners in that area by threatening by tearing down a gated fence. And remember, Missouri is a stand your ground state, which means that you can protect your home and your property. So right now, and again, folks, think of this, the Second Amendment, and here we have a DA that's, and hey, this is a George Soros funded DA. A lot of money came from George Soros to get her elected. And so what we're seeing here is this is troubling for other states. If this DA can come in and throw this frivolous charge, then what they're hoping, and you can see the left, is to deter anyone from protecting themselves from any intruder. But this isn't going to stand there in Missouri, and I think the Attorney General is right on cue, and he's right there to have that dismissed when it does go to the judge. President Trump. I'd like to talk a bit about him. He's had a busy week. But before I do that, hey, I started out, I didn't go COVID right away, but I am going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the latest with COVID, and I'll mention that right now. What we're seeing in the big thing where President Trump is going to be a pivotal leader in seeing that this happens, but right now it's obvious that opening up our schools in the fall has gone full political. The science and the researchers have determined that the kids are safe and they aren't spreaders. They can go back to school. In fact, many professionals are saying they don't even need to go back wearing masks. But we have the teachers union, and guess what side they're on? They're on delaying or pushing no attendance. So have it all external learning. And I'm already hearing here in New York that they have said when we in the springtime when they tried to go when they canceled the school and sent everybody home, they tried to do that online learning, and we're hearing a lot of leaders saying it didn't work. And President Trump has already been right up front. DeVos, Secretary of Education, has also been pushing we need to get our kids back in school. So that is going to be one critical campaign item that I hope President Trump keeps pushing that, because that needs to happen. And if President Trump is successful and gets our kids back to school, I think it'll bode very well for President Trump. Now, also, another thing that will be boding very well for President Trump, and this, I'm not sure if I agree with this COVID briefing that President Trump had this past week. A lot of mixed messages, and everybody's got to wear masks, and he went right up to the line and said he wasn't going to make it mandatory, and that's what a lot of the left has been pushing him to do. He didn't go there, but he did talk about the masks, and one other disturbing message is coming out of the Trump campaign is they almost want to blame opening up some of these states early, and that's what caused some of these spikes. And I wish somebody would tell Trump, hey, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You had leaders like Florida, like Georgia, that opened up their businesses. Why do you think that the economic numbers were amazing, to knowing what position we were in and where the economy was, and the amount of growth that took place in hiring during that time, simply because these states took leadership to open up, like Georgia, like Florida, Arizona. And that's why just those few states opening up, the several states that did open up, made a big difference on an upturn in the economy. So I I just wish that there was and I think that that's going to be a losing message for him if he goes down that road. But one thing I will say with President Trump the last couple days here was he, on Wednesday, he said that he was going to send federal law enforcement officers to Chicago to address that city's increase in violence and the anarchy and the murders that are taking place. Already, Chicago was the murder capital of America, and every weekend you had double-digit murders in many cases. And you have this Mayor Lightfoot who is clueless, or you just wonder, how can you elect and keep someone like that in office with loved ones getting killed in black on black crime, and why the residents that should be this, that there should be an outcry saying, look, you've got to go, where she's telling the police departments to stand down. And this isn't what a leader is supposed to do. They're supposed to put in place law enforcement that will cause crime and to go down, and not to skyrocket. But what's been taking place is these mayors are sending that signal, hey, we're standing down. We're telling our police to stand down. And what message does that send to the criminal and those that are the anarchists and those that are looking to tear a city down? It's the green light to go ahead. And that's what's been taking place. And again, I Governor Newsom, California, same situation. So many mayors out there right now. New York, de Blasio, same situation. And basically given the green light to the criminals, anarchists, and terrorists. Hey, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to prosecute you, and we're telling the police to stand down. So one piece of this for President Trump in the re-election is to bring back law and order, and the people are going to. That will be a rallying and a point that President Trump can differentiate himself from Joe Biden, because it's obvious that Joe Biden is right in the corner with those liberal mayors and the liberal governors in those states. So there's a big contrast there that President Trump will be able to make in the latter months when it comes to law and order and bringing dealing with the anarchy that's taking place in the streets. And again, this Black Lives Matter, that is really, and I think people need to start calling it what it is. It is a terrorist organization. And when you start looking at it, and they're really starting to do some investigations on who is the Black Lives Matter and who is the leadership. And we're hearing devout fascists, and we're hearing that some of the leadership right now have been already in prison for bombings, for terrorist acts, and that's who's leading the Black Lives Matter. And that message needs to get out loud and clear. And obviously it's being funded by George Soros and Tom Steyer. Yeah, Tom Steyer, the one who was running for president on the Democratic side. Those two billionaires have been sending money in to this terrorist group. And when I start referring to Black Lives Matter, that's what they are. They're a terrorist organization. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with people protesting, but when you're protesting under a banner of a terrorist organization, then there's something wrong there, real wrong. And if you're going to embrace yourself to a terrorist organization, that makes you a terrorist too. So, and I think right now we're starting to see a break. There's many in the black community right now that are calling out Black Lives Matter. And I'm hoping that we're going to see much more of that. Well, folks, we'll just make a quick review of what's been taking place with our sports. We saw the NASCAR was one of the leaders that started to open up, and I believe that they had some fans in the stands the last couple weeks. We see Thursday that the Major League Baseball is now playing, but a big dampener, folks. The so-called social justice push was on display, and we saw the knees being taken. So it looks like in Major League Baseball, that's what you're going to be seeing. We're also hearing that there'll be Black Lives Matter decals on, I guess, the helmets for NFL. So we're going to see, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised to, NBA will be right there if they're going to put something on sneakers, or if they're going to have some display for Black Lives Matter. So, the people don't want to go and see that, and there's going to be definitely a hit in numbers of people just aren't going to embrace, going to sporting events when they see the display of disrespect for our nation, for our flag, for our police. And bottom line is, if they're cozying up to Black Lives Matter, they are embracing a terrorist group. And these sports groups need to be called out, aiding and abetting a terrorist organization. They can call it whatever they want. These aren't peaceful protesters, and we're seeing it city by city. So, a lot has been going on here when we look at our nation and we see the anarchy that's taking place. But we know that, and there's a silent majority, and people right now are questioning, is there really a silent majority? But for me, folks, I can't see this nation to look around in the next 4 months and say, is this what we want for our country? And if Trump can continue to show a difference between him pushing for law and order and Joe, when he does have a coherent thought, he's embracing these mayors and basically going on the Black Lives Matter tour in that they're all well and good, they're peaceful protesters, and we need to take our hands off, and we also need to reallocate funds to the police. In other words, another wink, wink, nod, nod, that they want to. Joe Biden is for defunding the police. So we look around, we can get discouraged, but we know I'm hoping that faith in our the American people, that when it comes right down to it, they're looking for a leader that's going to strengthen our nation and not to weaken it. And when you see the anarchy and the crime and the burning of buildings, and you see the anger against the law enforcement that's taking place, I think the American people are going to say, we don't want that. And if Joe Biden's going to give us that, then no, we're not going to throw in with Joe Biden. And I think that's where we're at right now. We keep our, as I've said before, we continue to keep our president in prayer, keep him lifted up. I mean, he's going through, there's a lot of pressures. When you think almost like a perfect storm, you had COVID come in, and then the lockdowns, and then you had George Floyd that took place, and now you have a terrorist organization, a group, and this is organized, that have now used that George Floyd as the catalyst to say, okay, let's go and release our anarchy into this nation and try and tear this nation down. And they're attacking everything: statues, individual businesses, the police, the churches, and white people. That this systemic white privilege, and to go after white people for somehow that they can never redeem themselves. They're totally lost because of their white privilege, and that's the crap that Black Lives Matter has been pushing, and it needs to be rejected. And I have faith that the American people are going to stand tall and say, no, we're not going to go for that. We're not going to go for those lies, and we're not going to go with tearing down this nation. But, I believe that President Trump, if he continues to campaign with a strong on our borders, law and order, and to get our economy back on track, I think that will be a winning message for President Trump. So, folks, let's keep our president in prayer in these times of these trying times right now. Keep him in prayer, folks. And yes, we do want to absolutely keep our President Trump in prayer, our nation in prayer. God is the only answer in these trying times as we look around. And as I mentioned before, we could get discouraged when we see what's happening in our streets and some of the laws that are being passed that are against the family, against life. We could be discouraged. That's what the enemy wants. But we know that God wants the best for you and I. And, when I think about what we see here in our nation and some of the tragedies that are taking place, it could destroy someone. And the scripture that has come to mind And it's found in Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 through 27. Verse 24. Therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. But everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell, and great was the fall. So we see here, a picture of two situations. One who builds his house on the solid rock, and we know that the rock, when we think of the rock, we're thinking of Jesus. So when we think of someone who's had built his life and let Christ come in and dwell in that individual, knowing that Christ is the Savior and the one who saved them from a lost situation. That is the house that's built on the solid rock. And then we see the contrast of that one that has not been rooted and grounded in God. And the scriptures leading up to that it was Jesus talking parables and bringing a message of those that might say Lord, Lord, but really they don't have a relationship with Him. So when trials, tribulations, things that could destroy, the tragedies that may come in someone's life, that just catch them and take them the life support right out from underneath them, where they don't know what happened. You hear the saying, caught off guard, but something so tragic and devastating that it just knocks a person down. Well, we see here in the scripture a foundation built on that solid rock. So when tragedies that come into someone's life, they have something to hold on to, something to be anchored to, that when tragedies and things of life that come our way, there's a sure foundation that won't knock you off your moors. And I think last night we had some great messages by Brother Ken, and we had a new interviewee. Mark was interviewing Janet Janet Johnson, excuse me. And Janet brought a message of, you think about what would you do if you had your loved one, son or daughter or husband or wife that were taken, but when you have many loved ones around you that are taken, and taken tragically in that instance of murder that came to her home, and something that could totally devastate you. And in many cases, people have turned away from God because of tragedies such as that. But that wasn't the case, and Janet brought good news to us that, Mark had asked a question about the stages of grief, and were you angry with God? And she quickly said, no, it wasn't really an anger with God. And I'm sure she went through stages of anger, but it wasn't with God. It was the situation. And that's what we we may face tragedies because we all face the rain doesn't just go or you don't get the storms on just the unjust, but we go through, Christians go through those trials and tragedies in our lives too. So, but there wasn't that anger with God, but just and I'm sure she went through ups and valleys of those stages of grief, but she wasn't angry with God. The situation was that she was trying to draw near to God. Why did this happen, Lord? Why? And a puzzlement, but it wasn't anger to God. But she drew to God, the strength, that solid rock. And when tragedies come our way, that's who we can draw to and draw our strength from, knowing that He is, we may be devastated, but God is, He loves us, He wants to comfort us, and when we are in His hand, when we're in His family, we know who to go to. And that was the case here in the testimony that we heard last night, that unbelievable tragedy, but she went to that solid rock and stood on that sure foundation. And that was encouraging for you and I, folks, that we're going to God hasn't promised us that we're Christians now and we're never going to face any trials. No, we will face difficulties. This is we're humans, and we're living life, and that's part of it. But when we have a relationship with Christ, and we're in God's family, when trials and troubles come our way, we know who to go to. We know the voice of the one who can come alongside and comfort us. We know who to grab onto with all our strength and hang on in Him, because He loves us and we have that relationship with Him. Great message last night, and encouraging that tragedy may come our way, but if we hold on to that solid rock, and that solid rock is Jesus Christ, God, as I've said before, as we know that God made a way through His Son Jesus, and we want to hold on to that solid rock. That's Jesus, and we can make it through anything that comes our way. A child that may be struggling and out in the world right now, and maybe kind of in a lost situation, we hold on to the solid rock and intercede in prayer and lift that loved one up in that situation. And we know, having a relationship with God, who we need to go to when we're facing trials and troubles and disasters that may come into our life. And we need to remember that, folks, is that we're not in this alone. When tragedy comes our way, we know who we can draw to and latch on to and hold on for dear life. It's Jesus. And He will see us through and sustain us and allow us to get through in that time of turmoil and trouble. And we want to remember that too for our nation, that God will see us through. We'll see this nation through. We want to continue to keep our leaders in prayer, keep one another in prayer, as the body and each one of us here in PJNET might be going through something, and we want to keep our family lifted up in prayer, knowing that God is the answer. And if you know one that might be struggling right now, then we come alongside and let them know that who the answer is, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and we can draw comfort, and we can comfort one another with that truth. And that's my perspective and comments.